Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent Start, and welcome back to Season 2. Today, I want to talk about something that almost every English learner feels at some point: the fear of speaking and the fear of making mistakes. It's a very common feeling, but at the same time, it can feel very personal, because when you experience it, it feels like you're the only one. Maybe you understand English. Maybe you can read, maybe you can listen, but when it's time to speak, you hesitate, you pause, you start thinking too much, and sometimes you choose not to speak at all. And the reason is not always because you don't know the words. Sometimes it's because you are afraid of making mistakes, afraid of saying something wrong, afraid that people will not understand you, or maybe afraid that people will judge you. And that fear can feel very real. I've seen this happen so many times. Someone actually has enough English to speak, but they stay quiet. Not because they can't speak, but because they don't feel confident enough to try. And I think this is something important to understand. This is not only about language. This is about confidence. Because when you speak, you are not just using words. You are showing yourself. And that can feel uncomfortable. People hear your pronunciation. People hear your pauses. People notice your mistakes. And that makes you feel exposed. So your mind tries to protect you. It tells you to stay quiet. It tells you that it's safer not to speak. And in the moment, that feels like the right choice. But if you keep choosing silence, you also stop your progress. Because the truth is, you cannot improve your speaking if you don't speak. And that's the difficult part. You need to do the thing that you are afraid of. I think one of the biggest problems is how we see mistakes. We think mistakes are something bad, something embarrassing, something we should avoid. But actually, mistakes are a natural part of learning. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something. You understand what works and what doesn't. And slowly, you improve. But if you try to avoid mistakes completely, you also avoid learning. So maybe the goal is not to speak perfectly. Maybe the goal is to feel okay making mistakes. Because when you accept that mistakes are normal, speaking becomes easier. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need perfect pronunciation. You just need to communicate. And that is enough. I also think it's important to realize that most people are not judging you as much as you think. In fact, many people feel the same way. They are also nervous. They are also afraid of making mistakes. So when you speak, they are not focusing on your mistakes. They are just trying to understand you. And sometimes they respect you more because you are trying, because you are brave enough to speak. And that matters. I think confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence comes after speaking. After you try, after you practice, after you make mistakes. Then slowly you start to feel more comfortable. You start to trust yourself. And that's how confidence grows. Not before action, but because of action. So maybe you don't need to wait until you feel ready. Maybe you just need to start. Even if your voice is not strong yet, even if your sentence is not perfect, you speak anyway. And that is already progress. I also want to remind you that no one speaks perfectly. Even native speakers make mistakes. They pause, they repeat, they change what they say. That's normal. So you don't need to be perfect to speak. You just need to try. And little by little, it becomes easier. Anyway, this is something many learners experience. And if you feel this fear, you are not alone. It's part of the process. But it doesn't have to stop you. You can move forward, even with that fear. Slowly, step by step. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope this episode gives you a little courage to speak, even just a little more than before, because every small step matters. Thank you for listening to Fluent Start. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.